In Chapter 2 in the book, we start to look at self-esteem and self-confidence. This is a really good chapter, and I also posted a couple videos that are actually Dove commercials that deal with self-esteem and self-confidence. So make sure you go out and look at those, because they come into play on some of the things that we're going to be talking about in this particular chapter. The objectives: describe the nature, development, and consequences of self-esteem, explain how to enhance self-esteem, describe the importance of self-confidence and self-efficacy. And there is a video on self-efficacy that explains it this week as well. Pinpoint methods of strengthening and developing your self-confidence. Describe the problem of codependency and how it is linked to low self-esteem and low self-confidence. So let's talk about what we mean by self-esteem, and I'm starting out on page 32 and 33. Self-esteem basically refers to a positive overall evaluation of oneself, the experience of feeling competent to cope with the basic challenges of life and of being worthy of happiness. Okay? This is the definition in the book. That is self-esteem. Okay? The experience of feeling competent and able to cope and happy. Self-confidence refers to what we think about ourselves. The self-concept, refers to what we think about ourselves. Self-esteem is what we feel about ourselves. Okay, so keep the two a little different. Self-esteem is what we feel about ourselves. And that's, if you look at the definition, that makes sense. An overall evaluation of oneself is usually how you feel. And self-concept refers to what we think about ourselves. People with positive self-esteem develop positive self-concepts, and that makes sense. And self-esteem starts at a very early age. Okay, usually comes from a variety of early life experiences. People that have high self-esteem were usually encouraged by family members, friends, teachers. They were encouraged to do things. They were told and praised when they did things well. They were listened to. They were spoken to respectfully. They got physical attention, hugs and attaboys, and they had successful experiences at school or in sports or in any programs they were in, versus growing up in a family where you're harshly criticized no matter what you do, yelled at or beaten, never listened to, or expected to be perfect all the time and then always told how you're never perfect, experiencing failures in teams or school or programs that you're in, and often being given messages that failed experiences make you basically not a worthwhile person. Okay, so failure of yourself. So it starts at an early age, and as you grow up, some things about self-esteem have already been defined in you. It doesn't mean that you cannot change them, but you'll meet people like this. Some people have very high self-esteem. They have a good attitude, a positive outlook at themselves and who they are, and a realistic one. And then you have some people that have very low self-esteem, and they don't. And these are people that usually say negative things about themselves, even in a ha-ha funny way. They make negative comments. Well, if I weren't so fat, if I really had a brain, I probably could do this. These are people with low self-esteem, and it didn't just get there. A lot of it's based on how they were treated at early age when they were developing. Basically, this slide talks about what I just said, which is a variety of it comes from your early life experiences. Encouragement and emotional support lead to self-esteem. Healthy self-esteem stems from childhood, and low self-esteem also stems from childhood. It's just a question of how you are treated and what happened to you when you were growing up. Childhood experiences leading to low self-esteem include some of the things I already talked about: ridiculed, teased, frequent failures, being yelled at, beaten. Okay, it just really depends on, some people have had some rough upbringings, and that can create a really low self-esteem level in that particular individual. The current view of developmental psychologists is that self-esteem results from accomplishing worthwhile activities and then feeling proud of these accomplishments. And that's true, but when you're young, you need someone to point out that you did well and that you should feel proud. So accomplishing something as we get older, especially if it's something, overcoming a fear or something that's taken us a long time to do, and we finish it, you decide to go to grad school, you finally get through with your master's because you were working full-time and going, that's a major accomplishment. Or you go out for this team that you always wanted to be on, and you finally make it, and then, that particular team wins all of their games during the season that year. Those are all worthwhile activities and accomplishments. Adult life experiences also affect self-esteem, such as leadership that encourages self-rewards. And again, now we're going into pages 34 and 35. The development of self-esteem and the consequences of self-esteem. The social science perspective: person establishes a goal, person pursues the goal, person achieves the goal, person develops self-esteem-like feelings because they achieved the goal that they had set for themselves. The general information perspective: person develops esteem-like feelings, person establishes a goal, person pursues the goal, person achieves the goal. Two different ways, to look at it. Both get you to the goal. Obviously, I think it's easier to establish a goal when you already have good esteem-like feelings about yourself, but both will get you to a point of feeling good. The first one gets you there because you accomplished what you said you would. The second one, you already started feeling good, and then this helps you be able to accomplish your goals as well, but more fruitfully, and also just kind of reinforces that feeling that you already have about your self-esteem level. The consequences of self-esteem in terms of career success: obviously, high self-esteem levels lead to more career success than a low self-esteem level would. And basically, just because it does so many things, you have good mental health, you're happy, high self-esteem level kind of serves as a guide for regulating your social relationships, your relationships at work. It also, helps you throughout your job in terms of performance and looking at how you do the job and constantly learning and your attitude toward doing the job. All of these things come into play if you have a high self-esteem level. If you have a low self-esteem level, basically, your mental health may not be that great. Someone may make a comment about you, an insulting comment, and you take it to heart. Because you're so in tune with what other people are saying, you have no sense of self, that anything they say, they have the ability to hurt you if it's something nasty or negative. when it's something good, you're not necessarily sure they're being honest with you because you've never really had anybody tell you that you've done anything well or you've done anything good. So when you feel that way, it's very hard to be successful in a lot of things because you don't have that positive view of self. You're not going to take risks. You're not going to take chances. There's a fear. You're probably not going to have the mental capacity that you need to get through some of the things that you would need to do in a career opportunity. So both come into play. And this just goes to tell you that career success research studies found that people with a high core self-evaluations have doubled the career success of others. Also, soldiers with high core self-evaluations perform better in foreign language training. Organizational prosperity, which you'll find on page 35. Self-esteem is a critical source of competitive advantage in an information society, which is what we are in today. Being creative and innovative, taking personal responsibility, feeling independent, trusting one's own capabilities, taking initiative to solve problems. These are all things that come into organizational prosperity. Good health, we kind of talked about it. If you feel good about self, you have a positive outlook, it can prevent stressful situations. Also, feeling secure. When you do get some kind of negative feedback, you can profit from that and look at it as a developmental opportunity versus taking it as a personal thing. It serves as a guide for regulating your social relationships. Self-esteem rises and falls, acting as a barometer of how well we are doing. So all of these things come into play if you have high self-esteem. Now, are there negative consequences of high self-esteem? Of course there are negative consequences, and we've all seen that in some kind of people. Okay? Exaggerated levels of self-esteem can lead to narcissism. Individuals are so self-absorbed they have little concern for any others. It's all about them. I'm the best, I can do everything, it's all about me, I don't really care what you're thinking. Okay? That's self-esteem taken to an nth degree, and it's not good when it's there. Envying too many people when self-esteem is low. In other words, you're comparing yourself to others. Okay? Social comparison can lead to major self-esteem problems if you're always comparing yourself to somebody else. And poor relationships, poor romantic relationships when self-esteem is low might create distance from a partner. If you're married, you're involved in a relationship, and you have low self-esteem, you're not able to handle some of the things that may come up in partnership relationships, and therefore taking things a little more personally, this could create you to become more and more distant from the partner that you're involved with. The enhancement of self-esteem. And again, all of those negative consequences are listed on page 37. Let's look at the enhancement of self-esteem. Attain legitimate accomplishments. Okay? To boost your self-esteem, you must engage in behaviors that make choices that are worthy of self-esteem. Helping others can boost your self-esteem. Okay? Successfully completing a program that you're on can boost your self-esteem. Investing time and money in charitable organizations or activities can boost your self-esteem. Taking pride in your physical appearance and condition can boost your self-esteem. Having a social network page that's filled with honorable and sensible content can boost your self-esteem. There's a lot of different things that can do that. Be aware of your personal strengths, and how you do that is through introspection. And we basically, what that means is the act of looking within yourself. And the best way to do it, and what I've done to myself in the past, is I've sat down and I've written it. What are my strengths? In a lot of different areas, not just in my career development. What are the strengths within myself? Okay? What are my weaknesses? You don't want to concentrate on them, but you want to be aware of them. You want to concentrate on your strengths, and your strengths are what you want to bring to the foreground in order to enhance your self-esteem. You want to minimize settings and interactions that detract from your feelings of competency. If you have a fear of heights, why would you go skydiving? It's just going to make you feel worse. Okay? I think the example that they give in the book, and again I'm on page 39, most of us have situations in work and personal life that make us feel less than our best. If you can minimize exposure to those situations, you can't always, but if you can minimize it, you will have fewer feelings of incompetency. Okay, so, if there's something that makes you uncomfortable, try not to have to be in that situation. Sometimes we have to do work functions, even if they're not the things we're really comfortable with, but sometimes we can stay away from things that make us uncomfortable, which will only help us continue to work on our strengths and build those competencies. Talk and socialize frequently with people who boost your self-esteem. Don't hang around with the negative nillies in town, the people that are constantly negative about everything and anything around them, okay? But also, even if they're your friend, they say negative things about you. If you hang out with negative people, after a period of time, you are going to, they're like, what I call them are bone-sucking sponges. They just suck the life out of you. And eventually you're going to find yourself sounding and being just like those people that you hang out with. So if you want to boost your self-esteem, then you want to hang out with people that have high self-esteem levels, that, are positive, that say positive things about you, that say positive things about those around them, that aren't negative Nellies and always talking about, everything is an issue and, always basically playing the victim. You want to be around people that think positive, that are creative, they're innovative, and say positive things. And you all know, you've all had that person in your life that no matter what, they are so doggone negative, Is the glass of wine half empty or half full? Okay, well, it's half empty, and in about 5 minutes it'll be empty, and I'm sure we're not going to get any more. Okay, that's that negative person. You don't need to be around that. When you don't have a high self-esteem level, that just sucks the life force out of you to be around people that are negative. Model the behavior of the people with high self-esteem. Observe people that you like that have high self-esteem and model. Observe how they walk, how they speak, how they act, the things they do, their interactions with other people. Look at public figures that have high self-esteem and model yourself after some of that behavior and what you see. Stand tall, speak clearly with confidence, shake hands firmly. Look people in the eye when you're talking to them. A lot of people that have a low self-esteem level, when they introduce themselves, look down, they don't look at you and they mumble. Okay? Even if it's hard for you, make it a point to act and feel confident. And you will find that if you're acting that way, you're going to start to naturally feel it. Before we go on to self-confidence and self-efficacy, I want to say one other thing, and it is going to come up here, is another thing to help build self-confidence and self-efficacy is that what I call that negative talk, that little voice in your head, the little voice that tells you can't do something, or that little voice that compares you to that other person in class, or to your brother or your sister, and that's why your parents like them better than you, or they're smarter than you, or compares you to that model on TV that's gorgeous and you'll never ever look that way. All of that negative self-talk destroys self-confidence. And when you hear it in your brain and you're the only one that hears it, you need to stop it. You need to say, I'm not going to listen to that. Okay? You are who you are. You don't have to look like the model on TV to have self-confidence, to be beautiful, to be bright, to be intelligent. Part of the socialization that we have done here in the American culture is we have compared ourselves and gotten people to look at others and say, this is the standard of beauty. This is the standard of what's in shape. This is the standard of what we think is intelligent. And so, especially with younger folks, and certainly those at very young ages, they start comparing themselves to these people. And so if I don't look like a Victoria's Secret's model, then I must be ugly. And I'm never going to feel good about how I look. And then you have things where people have problems with, starving themselves and doing different things to try to attain that. You need to stop those negative voices. And you need to start looking at yourself in the mirror and telling yourself the things you like about yourself. This is just a conversation between you and yourself. But you need to start looking at the positive, the things you like, the strengths, and not concentrate on the negative. And we tend to concentrate on the negative in our little brain. It's like we have a positive and negative sitting on each one of our shoulders, but what's the one we listen to? That little negative voice that creeps in. And that little negative voice can do a lot of damage. It can make you pass up an opportunity that might be a good opportunity for you because you don't think you can do it even though you haven't even tried. So don't listen to that negative self-talk. Work on trying to shut that out. And it's very hard to do because it's done in your head, but work on trying to shut that out. So what is self-efficacy? Self-efficacy is high when you believe you have the ability to do what it takes to get the job done. Okay? So it's basically your confidence and your ability to carry something out and get it completed. That's basically what self-efficacy is. Studies show that people with a high sense of self-efficacy have good job performance. Well, that would make sense. And if you have high self-efficacy, you probably have high self-confidence as well. People with high self-efficacy are more likely to think that a goal is realistic. There's a good little paragraph on Jack Welch on page 41 in your book. He was a very influential CEO of GE that was very important in building the self-confidence of managers throughout his company, and for many years he was one of the most influential leaders of his time, and the tactics that he used with his leaders and his management team that then was passed on to the people that worked for him within the company. So you need to model the behavior that you want to become if you are not there, okay? Sources of self-confidence come from actual experience or things you have done, okay? The experience of others or modeling. You don't want to do social comparison because you tend to have negativity, okay, when you do that. Now, if you see people with capabilities similar to your own and they perform a task well, you can gain confidence that way. But you don't want to compare yourself unless it's someone that has the same type of capabilities similar to yourself. The fourth source is social persuasion, or the confidence of the process of convincing others. If a credible person convinces you they can accomplish a task, a lot of times you receive a boost in self-confidence large enough to give the task a try, okay? Someone tells you you can do it, and they talk you through it, and you feel so self-confident by that time that you then go forth and do it. Emotional arousal, or how you feel about events around you, how you manage your emotions, can also build self-confidence. If you have a strong topic that a lot of times you see this, someone feels very strongly about something, that can push you to move forward and do something, that confidence. Or Sometimes you can talk yourself out of feeling certain ways as well. Okay? So it just depends. If you have emotional sensations that influence your self-confidence, okay, you start shaking, you're nervous, whatever, a high self-confidence level, you can gain control over those emotions as you talk yourself through it. And I'm on page 42 and 43 in the book. We're still looking at developing and strengthening your self-confidence, and this would apply to anyone, even those that have high self-confidence, because this is something that can always be done. Take an inventory of your personal assets and accomplishments. Do not be modest in preparing your list. And you'll see that on page 43, they have a little picture of this. The first thing to do, take an inventory of your assets and your accomplishments. And your assets could be as simple as, I like my brown eyes, I like the color of my hair, I like my style sense, to things you've accomplished in your life. I got my graduate degree. I was on this team this year and we won all of our tournaments. Whatever that may be. Could be career accomplishments as well in there, but put an inventory together, okay? Second, develop a solid knowledge base. Working from a base of facts helps you project confidence. Okay, so when you start looking at, you want a bedrock strategy for projecting self-confidence. Some of that is formal education. Some of that is day-to-day information you absorb. Some of it's things you learn from other people, but get a good solid knowledge base, because that will also help you project confidence when you're talking. Use positive self-talk, okay? Not negative self-talk. Say positive things about you to you, okay? Because there's a lot of positive there, and we need to start doing more of that. Avoid the negative self-talk, and when you hear it, just shut it off. The minute it starts, shut it off. Say, I'm not listening. Okay? I'm not listening. When that little voice starts going, I know I don't have much of education, and probably I'm an idiot, I'm a loser, I'm this. Shut it down. Okay? Shut it down. Turn it around. Start thinking something positive. Okay? Maybe you don't have all the education as some people, but you have excellent experience. You can do this. The education doesn't have anything to do with what task you're trying to complete right now. Do the positive self-talk, not the negative. And unfortunately, we're really good at the negative, and yet for some reason we're not really good at saying positive things to ourselves. So it's something we can all work on. Use positive visual imagery. Picture a positive outcome of a difficult scenario in your mind. If you're going to have to do something, picture it through. What you're going to walk into the room, you're going to do this, you're going to say this, you're going to act through this. Picture the outcome that you want to happen. Okay? And I do this, I do a visual imagery whenever I'm really scared or nervous. Like sometimes if I'm going, I've had to have surgery, or if I'm going to get some work done that is something, either dental work or something that makes me really nervous. And while they're working on me or getting me ready so that I stay calm and I keep my blood pressure down and everything, I visualize what I call my happy place. I go to my happy place and I visualize something that makes me really happy, to the degree of, and where that is for me is on a beach. So, but I visualize. You smell the wind, you smell the salt of the ocean, you feel the sand on your bare feet as you're walking along and the warmth of the sand. You hear the waves as they're coming in and going back. You really visualize it down to feeling it and using all of your senses, so that that's what you're picturing, and you're not concentrating, for me, on what they're doing at that particular moment. But you can do the same thing by visualizing very specifically the outcome of something that you want to achieve. So there's something to be said for positive visual imagery. And we're on page 45. The Galatea effect is a type of self-fulfilling prophecy in which high expectations lead to high performance. Okay, so it's kind of like if you really believe in yourself and you believe you can succeed, you will succeed. All right, and that's what they call this particular effect. Strive for peak performance. A key strategy for projecting confidence is to display peak performance or exceptional accomplishment in a given task. You must be totally focused and be in the zone to do that. So strive for it. When you accomplish it, then again, that'll make your self-esteem level feel higher. Behave as if you feel confident. As you change your behavior, your attitudes will begin to change. Remember I said that earlier. Even when you don't have that high self-esteem level, if you walk like you do, if you start to model those around you and start talking like you do, and start doing that positive self-talk, eventually it will become second nature because you will build up that self-confidence. This sounds very strange, but practice public speaking. Delivering your thoughts effectively to any audience is a proven way of developing self-confidence. Any type of performance in front of an audience is a way of developing self-confidence. You can do public speaking, you can be in a play. All of these things help you build self-confidence. And then you need to learn how to bounce back from setbacks and embarrassments. Some people, when they have low self-esteem, like I said, somebody says something mean and they crumble. Okay, you can't do that. You can't let that happen. And as you build your self-esteem, it won't happen because you'll have a different outlook on some of these things as you deal with them. And again, now I'm on page 47 in your book and 48. Bounce back from setbacks and embarrassments. Get past the emotional turmoil. Okay, that's the biggest thing. Don't let the emotions take over. Accept the reality of the situation or the problem. Don't take it personally and get the help from your support network. Find a creative solution to your problem or challenge. To plan a comeback, you need to solve the problem. And then regain some confidence by relaxing a little. And sometimes maybe you need to do that before you tackle the situation. You might need to relax, you might need to do some positive self-talk, and then you go and say, okay, this is the situation and I'm being very honest with myself. Now, what am I going to do? And take it from there. Strive to develop positive psychological capital. And this is a definition in your book. It's basically a comprehensive way of becoming more self-confident, involving 4 components. In the book it says a positive psychological state of development in which you have a storehouse of hope, self-efficacy, optimism, and resilience. So that's basically what's here. Persevering toward goals no matter what, that you can succeed in a challenging task, make a positive attribution about succeeding now and in the future, sustain your effort and bounce back no matter what. You go forward, you keep going. You learn from your mistakes, you learn from what happened, and you continue to move forward. You want to avoid overconfidence because sometimes it can be a negative factor. Self-confidence can be a negative factor if carried to the extreme. Okay, an overconfident person might not give others a chance to speak in meetings. That person that's like, I got it. Or even that person in class that's always like that, okay? So you do want to have self-confidence. You don't want to put off those around you because that's part of it is your social network of friends, family, and peers. Okay? Too much concern about the self in general can create problems such as being self-centered and uninterested in other people in the outside world. It's all about me. I really don't care what you think. It's really about me, what I want, what I say, being the diva. Okay, that can also become a problem and create problems, as well as, not having enough self-confidence. So you need to keep that in mind as well. So let's talk about codependency. Meaning of codependency. The codependent places the needs and wants of others first. The exclusion of acknowledging one's own needs. A state of being psychologically influenced or controlled by, reliant on, or needing another person who is addicted to either substances such as alcohol and drugs, or a behavior such as gambling or internet or porn. The codependent is basically just influenced and controlled by that addictive personality and that addictive person. Okay? This usually happens when someone has a low self-confidence and a low self-esteem level. Because if they didn't, they would not, if they had a high self-esteem level, they wouldn't find themselves being dependent or mutually dependent on someone that is addictive or has an addictive personality. And this is on it starts on 49 and it goes through page 50 and 51. Okay, and there can be such a thing as codependent relationships, which are very unhealthy relationships. Maybe you've been in one. They're not good to be in, and they're not healthy, and they can be very destructive relationships as well. So, symptoms and descriptions of the problem include the following codependent behaviors. Now, right now we're talking about the codependent. Obviously, the codependent is basically tied to the person that has the addictive personality. We know that person has a problem. They're either on drugs, they're either on alcohol, they're either addicted to gambling or porn or whatever the case may be. They have an addictive personality. So that's a whole different problem. But now we're talking about the codependent, the person that stays with that person or is in a relationship with that person and maintains that relationship and really thinks of only what that other person needs, wants, does, and not their own. Okay? They basically, what they end up doing is enabling the addict to continue to be addictive. Things like covering up the other person's addiction. Okay? You feel, the codependent feels good when the dependent person feels good. So if you're codependent to a drug addict, when that person is high and feeling good, then that codependent feels great. When that person's in a foul mood and doesn't feel good, then the codependent isn't doing real good either. Okay? Let's see. Higher percentage, the book kind of covers this, of women more than men are codependent, but that is not to say that men can't be. Sometimes this is due to, culture and the emphasizing of nurturing and supportive roles of women, with men being more indifferent to the problem of others. So it could be a cultural thing as well. Codependents have a difficulty leading any kind of a satisfying and productive life because they invest all their energy in the person with the dependency or a person with the addiction. Okay? It's a very unhealthy dependence on a relationship or relationships. So, how do we control and overcome codependence? Psychotherapy, counseling might be needed. The first issue is the codependent person must become aware of the problem. They must realize that they're codependent. They must realize that they're enabling the addict to continue their behavior with their codependency. but they themselves have a problem. The codependent person must learn to say no, even in small steps. No, I'm not picking up that bottle of vodka on the way home. You lost your car keys when you came out of the bar because you're drunk and you want me to pick you up. No, I'm not picking you up. You need to take a cab or find someone else to get you home. It's hard. I'm making it sound really easy. It's really hard. It's as hard for the codependent to change as it is for the addict to hit rock bottom and decide they want to change their life. And part of the reason it's so hard is the last thing here is codependent person thinks that as long as they continue to be with this person and love them and try to help them, that they will be able to change this person. You cannot change an addict. Whatever the addiction, you can't do it. They can only change themselves. And they have to first recognize they have a problem. And until they recognize they have a problem, nothing is going to change. And as a codependent, you're only enabling the dependency and the addiction to continue. So you can't change the person, only they can. And in many cases, for people that have various addictions, some may never change and others won't change until they hit rock bottom. And that's different for everyone. The rock bottom isn't the same for every person that has some kind of an addiction. So these things have to be done in order for someone who is a codependent person to change their life, to be able to gain some self-confidence and to be able to build some self-esteem. As you can see by this little picture, I'm so happy. I need to take care of a man, totally dependent on negative behavior. Now I can feel good about myself. I'm totally dependent on gambling on the lottery every day. I don't know what to do about my problem. Codependency, just like addiction, is a very unhealthy relationship to be in. It just brings you down, just like there's nowhere for that addiction to go except downward for the person that's addicted. There's nowhere for you to go as you continue to stay in that codependent relationship. And they can turn very ugly, very brutal, psychologically and physically as well. Again, review in the book at the end of this chapter, chapter 2, there's a very nice review listed there on pages, and I just closed my book, so let me see here, 52 and 53. Make sure you look through the summary. Make sure you look at everything I've posted out this week for videos that give you a better idea of some of the things we're talking about here in the chapter as well. And more importantly, as you're working through things this week, remember, no negative self-talk, only positive self-talk. Have a good week, folks.